One of my favorite things lately has been interacting with all of the other like-minded small business owners inside of my free online community. If you want access to free resources, tools, trainings, tons of great sales advice, and just general encouragement for your business journey, then click the link in the show notes and join myself and other small business owners inside the She Sells Differently Facebook group today.
I think it's really crucial for people to realize, have kind of like boundaries of what they want their voice to sound like, how they want their audience to feel. You can't want them to feel all the things, right? And people who are like, oh, you can be professional and bold and empathetic and no BS and quirky and fun. And that's a lot of stuff to feel. And there's times in your copy that you can make them feel those things, but you really need to set those boundaries of what your voice sounds like for people.
Hi, friends. Welcome to She Sells Differently, the show for aspiring women entrepreneurs looking to overcome the fear of selling and grow thriving businesses from a place of authenticity and confidence. I'm Andy Hart, and it wasn't all that long ago that I was a sales executive for a Fortune 500 company. But I knew in my heart that I was called to use my gifts for something more, something different. That's exactly why I created the She Sells Differently podcast. Each episode is going to deliver you business strategies, tools, and mindset shifts to help set you and your brand apart from our culture's expectations. It's time to elevate your sales and build a profitable, sustainable business you're proud of. One built on integrity, grace, and humility. It's time to learn how to sell differently. Welcome to the She Sells Differently podcast. I am so excited that you are here. I have a special guest today, Dr. Amber Langley Gill, and I cannot wait for you to learn from her wisdom. I recently met Dr. Gill, and I will now call her Amber because I introduced you as Dr. Gill, but we'll call you Amber now. So I met Amber recently because we were both speakers at the Creative Marketing Summit, and I reached out to you. I was like, please be on my podcast. Please be on my podcast, because everything that I was learning from you, I was soaking it in, taking notes. So I'm so excited for my listeners to learn from you. Thank you for joining.
And I fell in love with you and what you're sharing at the summit. So I'm glad for this connection.
Thank you. And you sent your bio, but I always love for my guests to kind of give, your bio and tell us a little bit about your journey in your own words.
Oh, I feel like my journey is just a chaotic roller coaster on the entrepreneurship scale. So I could give it very polished, or right now I'm just gonna throw it at you.
Yes, that's what we want.
The nitty gritty. So I'm an emergency critical care veterinarian by education, and I recently stopped practicing on the ER floor for a lot of reasons. Mainly, it was just kind of quality of life and the season that I'm in with my family. I have twins. We call them the Gillies, and they are 11, and I homeschool. And I've been homeschooling since they were 4, and I even worked as an emergency critical care veterinarian while homeschooling. My hubster and I kind of tag team homeschooling duties, although I feel like when he steps up, they slide back. What I want to get done, he does a really great job. But, it's like when you have a plan in action, you have to be gone. It's like a substitute teacher.
Right.
So he does amazingly well. I love that man to death. But so I started my entrepreneurship journey with biohacking, which sounds really crazy. And so biohacking is basically just tools and habits and hacks to kind of be this superhuman version of yourself, and using yourself as a live experiment to see how you can best optimize your energy and your time. And so that's how I started, mainly because our twins were born prematurely at 27 weeks. And I realized that how I could support them while they were in the NICU was through nutrition, right? And this is TMI, but like as a breastfeeding mom, what I eat provides for them and nourishes
Right.
them. So I really focus on the brain and gut health connection. This was like 12 years ago. So I feel like before it got popular, I was studying this and I really dove into biohacking. And so when I started my entrepreneurship journey 11 years ago, it was like as the biohacker babe. And so if you ever read old blogs on my website, it says biohacker babe on there. And it's just part of my past. So I just leave it. And I still use it today, but I got out of biohacking mainly because I didn't want to be that person that was kind of like on their soapbox preaching what people should be doing. Like it just felt like there was a lot of people out there and I just did not need to be that person. And right when I was like having that kind of epiphany, I got picked up to be a high performance coach for this entrepreneurial community. And I was taught how to speak and how to listen for words. It's like neuro linguistic programming or something like that, NLP. I got taught in that and coached in that and really learned kind of like the back end of entrepreneurship, like with launch strategy and marketing and copywriting. And I got to learn that and how to help that community. And I did really well. But at the same time, I realized that kind of where they were headed and how I saw like my core values, there was kind of like it was starting to get wider and wider. Right. And I felt like it was not aligned to what I wanted for my family and I. So I just branched out and started doing my own thing. And it started with launch strategy because that's what I love to do. And with launch strategy, I get to be like part of seeing like the homepage and all the copy and the funnel and the email marketing and the social media. So I got to really help people do all the copy for their launch strategy and market it. And then at the same time, I was like, I got really frustrated because we would have all these beautiful launch strategies set up for individuals, and life would happen, or they would get scared, or something would happen. We would have to change the launch strategy. And it always felt like, for some reason, I would say 25% didn't fall through with the launch. And my hubster was like, it's not your fault. It's like, it's them. You can't make people take action. You can only like,
Right.
but it just really hurt my heart when people wouldn't fall through with the launch. And it was at that time I had one of my clients, she was like, I need you to teach me how to write. I need you to write my content. If I gave it to you, could you just write for me? And I was like, I would love to. That sounds remarkable. I love your brand. Let's do this. And it was at that time, like, it was probably like 3 years ago. It just started happening organically. People just started coming up to me, say, I love how you write your blogs, or I like how you write on social media. Can you also write for my company, or can you write for me? And so that's how it started, just kind of snowballed. And then in January, I was talking to Jen. I was like, I need to put it out there. Like, I need to give people something to help them. And that's how I created the Ink Vault. And yeah, that's how I help my clients today. So I was kind of like chaotic.
Do you know what though? It's so funny because every entrepreneur that I talk to,
It's not straightforward.
it's not, and it's ever evolving. And so I think your story is just a testament to that. And also, we were talking about this before we started recording, that the fact that other people, sometimes we miss out on our own gifts and natural talents, and other people called that out in you. Hey, you're really good at copy and storytelling. And that really kind of helped shape your path and your entrepreneurial
And
journey,
yeah, my friend Elizabeth would always say, sometimes we're in our jar and we can't read our own label. And I think about that all the time. It's like, I'm in my jar and I can't read the label that says good at storytelling. Or
Yeah.
like, these are my strengths. And I think it's really good when people reach out to you and to really be aware and acknowledge, like, when people give you those compliments, to like really pick up on it and be like, oh, these are my strengths. Because sometimes we just like brush it off. But I think it's really
Yes.
to like be acutely aware of them so that you can like tuck them in and be like, oh, more than one person has said, I'm actually good at this. Maybe I should look more into it.
That is wisdom right there, because it is true. We often just brush off compliments. And that's one thing that when I, started my career and kind of got into adulthood, right? I really made an effort that when someone complimented, instead of being like, oh, I
Yeah.
would say, thank you. Thank you for that. That takes a lot for someone to step out. And so it also kind of makes you be aware of what someone is calling out in you. So that's very wise. So you talk about, I love this. I love this. You talk about your approach is unapologetically raw and refreshingly honest. And so here on the She Sells Differently podcast, we often talk about authenticity in sales and countercultural sales strategies. And so I would love for you to just talk a little bit about how your approach to copy and storytelling, how do you believe that authenticity can really revolutionize the way that entrepreneurs approach selling? And especially when there's a lot of traditional sales tactics out there, they can feel scripted, right? And so, how does your authenticity kind of change that approach?
I would say there's, and I'm laughing because my hubby always like, whenever you talk, you always say there's two things. So there's like two things. One, I think it's like being really aware of your brand voice, right? And we talked about this before. I know you've heard me say this, but I think it's really crucial for people to realize, like, have kind of like boundaries of what they want their voice to sound like, how they want their audience to feel. You can't want them to feel all the things, right? And people who are like, oh, you can be professional and bold and empathetic and no BS and quirky and fun. And like, that's a lot of stuff to feel. And there's times in your copy that you can make them feel those things, but you really need to set those boundaries of like what your voice sounds like for people. And a way that you could do it is just like ask your friends or ask your spouse or maybe some of those dirt clients, right? Those people who would like buy dirt from you, like they're your ride or die customers, like just reaching out to them and be like, hey, I would just love to see, like, hear your thoughts on like what my brand voice is. Like, what do you feel whenever you read my content? And people are refreshingly honest when you ask them those things, and they really genuinely want to help you. And if you don't like the adjectives that they're giving you, you can always change it, right? Gradually change it to the voice that you want. Like for me, I'm bold, no BS, and quirky, right? I'm not as professional or polished as a copywriter, and that's okay with me because right now in my season, I have 20 and 11-year-olds. I am beautifully chaotic. My life is beautifully chaotic, and I feel like my captions and my stories like need to
Yes.
also have that.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. There's going to be a season where I am more polished and professional.
Yeah.
It's just not right now.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is like when people write copy or one, I think they get scared of copy. They get scared of writing. And for the longest time, I didn't know what people were talking about when they was like, oh, my copy. I'm like, what's your copy? It's like, oh, what I wrote. I'm like, so what you wrote? Like, I didn't
The
understand, like,
verbiage.
that
Yeah.
was one of the slangs. Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm out of this. But I think they get so fired up about their offer and they either one just verbally vomit on people about how amazing their offer is and like, oh my god, I can solve all these problems that you have, which is fine and it's great, but I feel like it's very 2009, right? Like that's fine. And then two, they get so stuck on just speaking to one person. Like, have your avatar speak to that one individual person. How does she think? How does she feel? And I think that's not the case. I'm like going against the
Yeah.
grain. I don't think that's the case. What people want to hear is, yes, they want to hear your offer. Yes, they want to see how it can solve them, but they also want to hear from you, right? They want to hear how your offer has helped you, how you built it. They want to hear the person behind the brand. Like some of my favorite brands, or whenever I know the history of it, and I can tell you, like the sweatshirt that I'm wearing is of an event that I participate in, but I know the three co-founders. I don't know them personally, but I know of them. I know how they started their company. I know how the events that they put on. I know what they do in their pastimes because they share it like
Mhm.
on social or on their website. And I feel like once you have that connection to a brand, you're more
Yeah.
willing to invest in them. And so I think a lot of people who are out there putting products lose that because they're so focused on verbally vomiting all the goodness of their offer, which is amazing, but they're losing that the part of like themselves
Yes.
in
And
their
I know
marketing.
I've been guilty of that before. Yeah.
Oh, me too. Biohacker Babe was all about how I could biohack your life.
I'm gonna have to go check out that too. So I was looking on your website and I saw some things, but yeah, that it sounds fascinating too. So you were kind of hinting at a little bit like some of the key elements of elevating a simple story. And I would love
Yeah.
if you could maybe share what are some of those elements of having a story that really elevates it to more of a marketing tool that not only engages an audience and helps them to feel those things that you were just talking about and to know your brand personally, but also does drive sales at the end of the day.
So, one, you have to know your brand values, right? Your core values, what you stand for, what you want to implement, how you want people to feel. Like for me, I like to edutain, as I always say, like educate and entertain. I also want to inspire. Like I just want people to be
Mm,
the best versions of themselves. I'm not in competition
right.
with you. I'm not in competition with anyone. Who I am today and my future self. Like that's what I'm in competition with. And so I just want everybody to win. And so my messaging is always trying to inspire, right? And I think it's really good to think about like your brand. What do you want people to do? Like, how do you want them to take action after reading your content and being aware of that? And once you can think about that, you can think about things that happen in your day to day. And I know we talked about this before, but I think some of the boring, mundane stories that we have in our lives, the things that we think are like, are so blasé, or things that really are inspiring to other people. And we just have to be aware and take note to really showcase those stories. We all think that we need these big, grand things to happen to inspire people or to really make an impact with our customers. And that's not the case. Like, I shared a story about, I forgot what it was, but it was, oh my gosh, there's so many that I'm thinking about, but about my daughter making wishes with dandelion puffs, right? And she was saying things that she was wishing. And I made a story about like connecting that, like that moment of watching my daughter blowing dandelion puffs and her wishes to how I wish something happened in my business, right? And so whenever you think about like even me saying, "Oh, my daughter's blowing dandelion puffs," you probably had an image in your head about when you were blowing dandelion puffs or like getting all the stuff all over you, those little wisp, I don't know what they're called. But those petals all over you and seeing them pop up in the yard, like you have a vision and it brings you back. And that's what you want your clients to think. When they read your stories, you want them to connect with memories that they have as well. So I want to say just like take note of like stories that you have every day in your life that you may think are boring or mundane or not as impressive as other people's, right? Make a note somehow. I like to use a voice recorder because I talk faster than I can type. So I'm just like, this is what's happening, blah, blah, blah. And I just make bullet points. And at the end of the day, I sit down and I write a story that goes along with it. Like, okay, how does this relate to my audience? How does this relate to like what I want my audience to feel when reading my content? And it's just making those connections. You can relate anything to marketing, right? My son had jujitsu this morning. I could relate that to marketing and sell a product. It's just like, okay, what is the lesson? And what is the takeaway that you want your audience to have? Like, what's the feeling? I'm inspiring, right? I can make an inspiring lesson that leads them to my offer at the Ink Vault with jujitsu. It's just being one aware, knowing what emotions you want them to do, what actions you want them to take, and then being aware of those moments in your life
Yes.
because you have them. Someone cuts you in line at like the grocery store. That's a story right there, like how you handled it, your reactions, how they handled it. You helping an old lady carry her grocery bags to the car. I don't know why I'm stuck on groceries, but like that's a story, right? Like how nobody else was there, but you were there and she was so sweet. And she gave you a Werther's original. Like that's a story, right? And it may be boring. You may forget it in like 10 minutes, but there's stories all around us and we just need to be really aware of
I
them.
find this fascinating too because if you think about it, like stories have been around for everyone loves a story. Stories have been around since ancient times. And so I think there are a lot of people out there, a lot of my listeners that are they are connecting and they are hearing that and they're thinking, I have no clue how to draw the line of, connecting, going for a walk in my neighborhood and, with my child or whatever that is, and connecting that to my business. So, what are maybe you talked about using the voice recorder. And I know, because I will promote this because I'm excited to join the Inked Vault, that there is probably some content in there that helps maybe draw some of these conclusions in the stories. And so I would maybe love to hear, like, what are some of those techniques that you or that my audience could implement to kind of help them craft those stories?
Yes. In the Ink Vault, I do give kind of like templates. I do like a Mad Lib style because I do think it's a muscle. Like, you don't just automatically get really good at
Right.
storytelling overnight, right? Something that my dad was a really great storyteller verbally. I was not. I always felt like I needed a moment. Like, I could always do a really good text or a good email, but it took me a while, like in the moment, to think of the things. Like, I wasn't as
Yes.
quick on my feet as my father was. And that was something I was like, I'm gonna get really good at doing this. And I was probably 18 at the time, and that was like 20 something years ago. So it was like one thing I really wanted to hone in. And so the other day I was at a business dinner with my hubster, and he was like, "You told that story amazing. You did like such a good job." I was like, "Thank you." I was so nervous. He's like, "No, like you're really getting good at like storytelling in person, verbally." And I was like, "Thank you," because it's not a strong suit. So I think the same thing goes with like trying to kind of pivot the way that you are marketing and trying to pivot the way that you write your copy. It's a muscle. And so I do give some Mad Lib styles like, hey, insert this emotion with this memory and then this. And like, I give you some connect the dots there. But if you think about movies, or if you're an avid book reader like myself, you always have like this like roller
Mm.
coaster of a story, right? You have the main character, which hopefully it is you and your business, right? You're the main character. They have a problem, right? They have something that they're going through. So you connect to the main character, you identify the obstacle. There's going to be some kind of trauma in the middle, like some third act, like that is going to ruffle their feathers. And then you have this epiphany of a lesson, and then it brings it to the conclusion. And I go really more in depth with this in the Ink Vault, and there's better terminology for you, but that's kind of like the roller coaster that you see. And every sitcom that you watch, that's how it goes. Every movie that you watch, that's how it goes. If you read a book, you always know at 70 to 80% to the book, there's going to be some kind of
Yes.
third act, like breakup, or there's going to be a third act obstacle. Oh my God, I'm adopted. Like, something's going to happen in those pages until you have the resolution. And so that's how you think about your stories, is like, okay, what is the lesson? I always like to go back. Like, what is the lesson? Okay, what did I have to overcome to get that lesson? Okay. And then where am I starting from? And so just think of it that way. Like, where am I starting from? Identify you as the main character. Put in your brand voice, your tone, your adjectives that you want them to identify you with. And then what obstacle are you facing, and what lesson are you going to have, and then resolve it. So it's just kind of like this little roller coaster
Yes.
to follow.
Yes, because
That
it
helps.
does, because if you think about like your favorite movie or I love to read too, your favorite book, there's
Okay,
always,
good.
kind of that same framework that is followed. And so that's really helpful to think of crafting your own stories in that same way.
Yeah, and when you do, like, even captions on social media, you'll see that I don't know, if you follow me, but even if you follow someone, really identify, like, who are the people that you read their captions,
Mm,
and why do you read their captions? And you can kinda see, like, oh, I you start seeing those 4 things, right? And like, "Oh, okay, this is the scene that they're setting. They're the main character. This is the scene. This is their obstacle. Oh, that's the lesson." And then they brought it all together. I'm like, "Oh." Like, you just get in that habit, and you can do
yeah.
it in a caption. You can do it in 2,000 characters or
So
less,
you said it was scene, main character, obstacle, and then the lesson, right?
and then you bring it all together.
Yes. That's so good. So good. I'm over here like writing notes because I love learning during this. So Any exciting projects or just insights that you have on the horizon? Anything that you are working on, or ways that my listeners, if they're like, I want to learn more about storytelling, how would they connect with you?
Yeah. Well, you can find me on Instagram, right? And it's at Dr. Amber Langley Gill. I know. I should take off the
Hey,
doctor,
you
but
worked
it's
hard
there.
for that degree. Leave it.
That's what my coach said a long time ago whenever I started my account. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, you're hiding. I'm like, I'm not really hiding. I just don't want clients to find me. Like pet clients, right? I don't want them to see what I'm doing on social. However, I do have a freebie. It's called the Brand Voice Guide. If you are struggling to identify like what your tone is and how you want to show up, it's very simple to go through. It's 20 pages. It's kind of like a mini baby to the ink vault. I wrote the ink vault first, and then I had a client that I was working with struggle with identifying her brand voice. She was kind of all over the place, thinking that she needed to talk to everybody and how she just felt like she could serve everybody. And I was like, no, let's bring it down. You can at one point, but in the beginning, you need to really hone in and serve a small group and really identify. Because my thing is like whenever you are writing or whenever you're showing up, even on this podcast, you want people to like as soon as they read something, they immediately know it's you. Like, oh my gosh, this sounds just like Amber or it sounds just like Andy. Like you want them to connect that powerfully. Like same thing like with images, right? If you see a certain image, you're like, oh, that's this brand or that's that person without even seeing their face in the image. And so that's what I want people to say when they get an email from you. Like, that is so her. Like, that sounds just like her. So the brand voice helps you with that. So that's something free. For me, I'm just really excited to get the Ink Vault in more people's hands. I do work one-on-one with people, but there's like a wait list because we go really deep and I like to go through all their content, right? So their websites, if they have a podcast, if they're working on a book, their social media, we get into the nitty gritty of things. It's super fun for me. Probably not so fun for the other person because like it's a lot, right? It's like your baby
Right.
is under a microscope and that can be unnerving, right? It kind of feels like you're in a dressing room getting changed and the person comes in, take your measurements. You're like, oh my God, this fluorescent lighting is not helping. And that's what it feels like. But it's really refreshing afterwards because they have like a game plan of like how to like express themselves in their brand. And they're not just like flailing. So that's fun. But other than that, like for me, I'm a homeschooling mama and I do ultra marathons. So I have a race that I'm
Amazing.
training for. So I have clients. And yeah, I have a 100-miler in
Wow.
July.
Oh my goodness. Where is the 100-miler?
It's in Oregon. It's called Mount Hood 100.
That is incredible. I did.
I've
Oh,
only
no. I was saying
you've done
I
it?
did a half marathon once, and my goal
Hey,
was to run the whole
still
thing.
good.
But I remember
Still
when
good.
we split off from just the marathoners. We're not even talking about ultra marathoners. And I thought, I'm never going to do a marathon. But it was in that moment because I was like right at the end. And
See, there's a story there.
yes,
There's a
that,
story there.
yes.
And that you can
Yeah.
relate that to your
That's
business,
really,
right?
see, you just
And but
proved your whole like framework. I love it.
thanks. You're welcome.
Yes.
Tied it all together.
So I think it's fascinating though that you run ultra marathons, and I'm sure there's like so many stories and like lessons learned even in that.
My first ever shouldn't even have been running it. It was 150 miles. Like the first, I'm going to say this. I've run two races my entire life. One was 150 and one was 100 miles. Like I haven't even run a 5K. I haven't run a marathon race. Like I run those distances in training, but not like
Right.
in like a race. And that's totally fine if if that's what people love to do. I don't know. I don't think that's my bag. But the first race I've ever did was 150 miles across the Sahara Desert. And I remember getting up there and there's like all these like elite, like really toned athletes. And I just graduated from vet school and I was like pasty white, like, cause I had just been in like a library for 4 years. And I was like, the longest I had run was like 5 miles and I was at the starting line for 150 in the sand. And I was like, I'm going to die in
Oh
Egypt.
my goodness.
I was like, I'm going to die here. That's cool.
But you
That's
made it.
cool.
You made it.
It was, I did. I came first in my
Wow.
division. So, woohoo. I got
That's
a trophy and
incredible.
everything. So think I was just more excited that I lived and I didn't get,
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't die. Because when we got there, the doctor was like, so there's scorpions and there's rattlesnakes. And if you get bit, you'll die within 4 hours. And it takes a helicopter 2 hours to get here and 2 hours to get you to the hospital. So you'll be dead before you arrive.
Ugh.
And I was like, why don't we have anti-venom? Nobody's thought about this. Like, I feel like this is
The
not
parallels
prepared.
here, talking about story talent, the parallels here between this and entrepreneurship. Spot on.
Oh my God, so many.
I love it.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest thing is like I was not prepared,
Yeah.
but I just did it, right? I did it and I had some fails, but I succeeded.
action.
So if you're an entrepreneur and you're at the starting line of whatever you want to offer or whatever big adventure you have in your business, just
I
take the
love
first
that.
step.
You will
You'll
survive.
survive.
And so we are going to link all of the goodness that you talked about. So the Inkball and then the brand voice guide. And then, of course, where you can find Amber on social media, because I want to go follow her now and see her framework on social media too. So we'll link all of that in the show notes. Amber, thank you so much for joining us. What a gift, your wisdom, and just thank you for sharing all of your gifts with us.
Thank you. It was fun. I felt like I was just talking
Yes,
to
that's what
my
I love.
bestie.
That's what I want
Really?
for the She Sells Differently podcast. And you provided so much value for my listeners.
I hope so.
Thank you guys for tuning in. And we will be back next Wednesday with another episode of the She Sells Differently podcast. And thanks for joining. All right, that's a wrap on today's episode of She Sells Differently. Friends, it would be a huge blessing to me if you would take 2 seconds to rate and subscribe to my podcast. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Until then, I'm cheering you on in your entrepreneurial journey. See you next time.